Nice. All right, I'm going to let Natalie take over now. For all of our attendees, if you take your mouse towards the bottom, there's a Q&A button, and you can type in any questions in there as you think of them. And we've saved a great amount of time at the end for any of your questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. And Matsuna, can you throw up the deck on your end?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. That's going to take me a second. Why don't you?
That's okay. So welcome, everyone. While we're getting this deck thrown up on screen share, I'm going to take you guys through a bit of our agenda. So we've done our introduction. You've met the panelists. We're really excited to get you to hear from them. We had a really fun rehearsal, have some really good tidbits of information that we think will be super helpful. And we're going to go through 5 key drivers today of how Gen Z considers dining and considers digital dining in particular. And so we'll go through the 5 drivers, which are time, cost, discovery, personalization, and exclusivity. And then we'll have some time. We'll run through insights if we have the time. If not, we'll jump right into a Q&A session, depending on how many questions we have from you guys. So while you are watching, if you have questions as the panelists are speaking, please put them in the Q&A box, and we'll be sure that we get to all the questions at the end. We're going to leave some ample time for that. And how the setup goes with our webinar is we'll go through the drivers, give some narrative examples of why these drivers are important, what restaurants and digital dining services can think about these drivers and applying them to their experience, along with stats, having the panelists respond to stats. Do they relate to them? Do they not? How much are these trends that we're seeing valid in people's actual experience? And then have panel questions. And so that'll be approximately the first 60% of the webinar, and then the other 40% we'll leave for closing and Q&A. All right, so we'll jump right in to our first driver, which is time. And you'll see Rock T, who we have, says his go-to is Uber Eats, with just the time that he has. That's the most convenient and practical use for his digital dining. So when we think about time, a big thing that we'll see for themes is convenience, but we really ask the question, what does convenience mean? And what is actually at the core of that, especially for this generation? And the big thing is Gen Z is time strapped. So we can hit the next slide. And so how they consider convenience is really about on the go. How quick is it? How seamless is it? And there are 3 key elements that are really important for them. So one is packaging. They're super busy. Does your packaging cater to that convenience and ease for them? The frictionless experience, which I'm sure everyone aspires to. How seamless is that ordering experience? If you offer pickup, how simple is it? Example would be like Chow Now's Instagram order now button that let them pay for food directly, and speed. How fast is your service? How fast is the ordering process? Because a big reason why Gen Z, and you'll hear from them themselves, focus on aggregators, not direct to restaurant, is really speed and convenience. And so what are ways that there's elements where Gen Z can have that directly from a restaurant experience? Especially as 46% have at least 2 jobs and 24% are generally eating in their car. So our first question for the panel, and we can hit next slide, is how big of a factor is time and convenience when deciding to order food, and what does convenience mean to you? And we can start with Josh for this question.
So time and convenience is a very big factor to me, because outside of creative stuff, I do work retail as well. So if I'm on a break from retail or just trying to get a meal before or after my shift, and I want to get home in a timely manner or anything like that, then I want to make sure that when I go to the app to press order, there's no 35, 45-minute wait or anything like that. I just like to go with what's easiest. So that's kind of like the role that convenience plays for me. But yeah, now realistically, it just means being able to kind of just having how do I explain it? Kind of just having the most simple route from deciding what I want, placing the order, and then going in to pick it up. Like if I can do that all within a timely manner, like that's most likely the option I'm gonna go with.
And you said that when it comes to ordering food through the web, you usually start with the website. So you'll
Yeah.
go to the website version of DoorDash, Uber Eats, or Grubhub, so an aggregator. And then if you have the app downloaded on your phone at that time, then you'll transition to the app. Why
Yeah.
start with the website?
Honestly, that's just a weird thing that I do. Like, it's probably more ideal to start with the app, but me personally, I think that also just gives me a broader option or a more variety to like choose from. So that way, if I Google what I'm like looking for, and then I get a bunch of responses, and then I'll be like, okay, let's go to this app because they probably have the cheaper delivery fee or something like that. So,
Nice.
yeah.
T, what about you? How big of a factor is time and convenience? And what does convenience mean to you?
I mean, much like Josh, I think convenience is like a really big factor for me, especially when it comes to time. Much like Josh, I work like 40 hours a week. I go in around 1, I get home around like 11:30, and sometimes I don't have enough time to eat at work, so I need something like just quick and easy. Um, and most restaurants stop taking in like pickup orders or dine-in orders like around that time, so it's inconvenient for me. So ordering through an aggregator helps a lot with both time and convenience.
And you said that when you order food online, your immediate go-to is Uber Eats. You don't think twice about it for the hours you work and the times you have to yourself. It's a no-brainer. Why Uber Eats?
So Uber Eats offers a lot for like discounts and like those delivery fees that take them off. You know, Uber One, which I use Uber frequently, so I have Uber One. It's really like the benefits I get from using Uber Eats. Their service is consistent, um, and it's just something I've always used when it comes to dining.
Is there more of something I noticed when I was using Uber Eats versus other things is Uber Eats, especially earlier on, you could access restaurants that generally you couldn't access on other, like
Oh,
their
absolutely.
distance between your home and what you could order from was a lot wider. Usually restaurants and aggregators had like a very limited, you can order from this neighborhood and that's it. But Uber Eats, you could order from other neighborhoods. And that was something that really solidified in my mind that they could go the distance and they would bring me whatever I wanted, didn't matter how far, even though it was a bit pricier.
Yeah, and honestly, it's honestly a luxury. It's worth the price, and you can get exactly what you're craving when you want it in a quick matter. There's also I've seen not only as a distance a factor, the restaurants that are exclusive to Uber Eats. There's been like kind of this like ghost kitchen trend where celebrities will open up a spot that you can't go to physically, but you can order from, and you can try these new foods specifically only on Uber Eats.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Emily? How big of a factor is time and convenience, and what does convenience mean to you?
So time and convenience, it doesn't only play into when I'm ordering food, but my life in general. My schedule's pretty jam-packed, and if I'm not doing school, I'm at work. If I'm not at work or school, I'm studying for school. So time and convenience, it plays in together like hand in hand because if I'm desperate enough to get on the app to spend a lot of money in order to get some food, I want it right away. I feel like I have that craving and I just want that instant gratification of having it at my doorstep immediately, because I'm, willing to spend that much money on it. So yeah, time is really important. It if it takes too long, I probably won't get it. Yeah.
And what's your go-to ordering service?
Mine is Grubhub. And I think I've stuck with it for so long only because it has my go-to orders on there already and it keeps notes of what I've ordered previously. So it makes it a lot easier to just press, oh, order again. And yeah.
So that's also like super speedy and convenient. You can just click, duplicate this order. It's on the way. They have your credit card information. You don't have to
Mhm.
think about it.
Yeah, the Apple Pay works really well too. You just double click
So
the side of your
Apple Pay is
phone
how you
and
like to pay.
yeah, and you know they already have it on their the app, so it just makes everything a lot easier.
Cool. Thanks, Emily.
Mhm.
We're going to jump over to driver 2, which is cost. And this is obviously a really big consideration for Gen Z, especially earlier in their careers, and financial strength, but also what exactly kinds of costs. How does Gen Z determine value versus cost for food? And what are things restaurants can think about when trying to deliver a very high value or reduce that friction from cost when ordering? And so a couple things that we spoke about with the panel and that we looked at in terms of third party is making it easy. How can you reduce tension? And this is something that we found that was super interesting, especially in relationship to pickup orders. And T has a story about this that we'll ask him to share shortly to save Gen Z on delivery costs, since there is this kind of exodus away from delivery more towards pickup for cost savings across multiple generations, but especially Gen Z. If your restaurant establishment really has a very strong, seamless, frictionless pickup experience, how can you advertise that, communicate that so that Gen Z has that cost saving and can order directly from you, maybe versus an aggregate or from an aggregate? Providing value, and what does value mean? So is the food fresh? That was a really big one that we heard from the panel. Is it fresh? Is it hot? T, you shared a story about sometimes you use Uber Eats and the person is just sitting at the restaurant and you're just thinking about your food getting cold, and then they call another driver, and by the time the food gets to you, it's cold, and you don't really feel like Uber Eats is doing much to, you get $5 off, and it's like, that doesn't help, like my $30 I just wasted. So, you know, are there ways that restaurant can consider the freshness of deliver and ready pickup food, considering a tiered delivery system for direct orders? So is there a way to have some cost savings there, potentially transitioning this demographic from aggregators to direct, or even dynamic pricing strategies like discounts for off-peak orders? And then this is a controversial one, which we're going to love for the panel to take you guys through, which is buy now, pay later. So how versatile are your payment options? Uber Eats offers buy now, pay later, and 44% of Gen Z, and that number can be even as high as 60 to 70%, depending on what study you're looking at, do use buy now, pay later. But it's not very common. Only about 10% of the generation use that for restaurants, but it's not zero. So T, can you share about your pickup experience that you spoke about with Wingstop? Because you're Uber Eats, you're always delivering, you don't really pick up, but then you recently just had a shift in experience because of cost.
Yeah, so over this weekend, I was craving Wingstop, which I do like once a week. And I was looking at the cost on Uber Eats, and it was like closer to $30, around $27. And I noticed they took it off some like of the flavors I usually get off the app, and I was curious about it. So I went to go download a first party app for the first time in I don't know how long on Wingstop, and I noticed they had every single flavor listed, and it came out to around $17 for pickup. So I was like, I might have to take that walk. So I put on my bag and I got dressed and I walked down there to pick it up. Came right back home and ate it, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I could understand how people would do this more. I mean, if you're offering, they also had an exclusive flavor, the new like the Lakers like garlic, and that I got to try that it wasn't in app. So um, yeah, I think if you're offering stuff like that, it's way more enticing to go in person to pick up.
So that's really interesting because I want to read the quote from the prep work that you did for the panel before this experience, and then also make a note for the audience and for the panelists that this concept of this element of switching diners from aggregators to direct and what kind of things are motivating for Gen Z. But T, something you wrote in the prep work was, I don't think much could make me switch from an aggregator to a first party delivery for a restaurant. It would have to be a local spot that's outstanding for genre of food that doesn't have a way of ordering through an aggregator. The convenience these apps bring me is way too crucial to my life. So that's how you felt at the time, and that's probably still very accurate generally. But then this was very unique Wingstop experience. So take me through again, was the key reason you downloaded the app because you were missing those key flavors and that Wingstop had something in its menu direct that it didn't have through the aggregate?
It was a series of like the smallest things lining up that like I was like, I'm gonna just go do. Like I had enough time to actually go and grab the food. Usually I don't. But I had time to go and grab the food, and then I was really craving like some two specific flavors that I really wanted to have that they didn't have on the app for some reason. That used to be there, and I was like, you know what? I know I saw all that talk and then the prep work, but they got me. They got me. I had to go get that food.
Nice, thanks, T. So the question for the panel is, how does cost factor into your decision to purchase food? And how do you decide what you're willing to pay for? And we'll start with you, Emily. How does cost factor into your decision to purchase food? And what is your decision process and what you're willing to pay for? What's your, like, how much do you generally pay for takeout? How do you make those decisions about what you're willing to spend?
Sorry. I feel like if I'm in that moment of weakness where I'm very hungry, price doesn't really play a factor. Maybe after when I've eaten the food, I'm like, oh, yeah, that damaged my bank account. But most of the time, you know, like I said earlier, if I'm getting onto the app because I'm craving something really strongly and I just want it instantly, I won't really pay attention to the price. And that's probably why it's racked up to a couple $100s a month. But I will pay attention to things like the delivery fee or how much is going toward the driver. I do like to be like generous when it comes to tipping because we do live in a culture where a lot of people who do these services live off of tips, and I work in a restaurant myself, so I know how important it is for you know, at the end of the day, how much am I leaving with in tips versus like how many hours I worked and stuff like that. So yeah, price, it doesn't really play too much of a factor for me. Maybe that's because I get FAFSA and I'm being a little too reckless with it, but yeah.
Uh-oh, Natalie, did we lose you? Did we lose everybody?
I'm still here.
I can see everybody.
Oh,
but-
there you are, Natalie.
Cool. Josh, can you answer that question? How does cost factor into your decision to purchase food? And how do you
So-
decide what you're willing to pay for?
So kind of like Emily said previously, when I'm in a tight spot, like I'm not thinking about, you know, money or anything. That's usually when I'm getting off of work or something, I'll pay almost whatever. But I'm usually a bargain hunter. That's one of the reasons that I will Google and kind of get an array of prices before I choose just one. So that's kind of just how I approach it, but it's not a very big factor for me, like all the time. It just depends on what I'm doing that day.
All right, so let's move on to driver 3, discovery. And this driver is around how Gen Z discovers food, discovers restaurants. A lot of you guys spoke about that instant gratification, that desire for that particular flavor and something you really want. And we want to explore, how do you come to that desire? How does that restaurant come into your awareness? How do you make these kinds of appetite decisions? What are you craving? We can hit next slide. Thanks, Martina. And the 3 key things in relationship to this discovery that we found through speaking with the panel is virality. So how aware and prepared is your menu for social media trends? A good example of this would be Chipotle adding the viral TikTok fajita quesadilla to its menu. And I would actually be curious. I know this panel isn't big on Chipotle, but I'd be curious if you guys have heard about this. And then arm candy. How visually appealing is your menu? For instance, cold coffee cups that were made transparent to showcase all the beautiful elements that exist in cold coffee versus the opaque paper ones for hot. And awareness. Are you present on social media channels and ready to promote your relevant items at the right time? And here's a quote below from PepsiCo Food Service CMO: restaurants should expect 60% of order growth to come through digital channels. So it's really, really important. And so for the audience, and I think Rock, we'll start with you first. How do you find restaurants you want to try? Do you discover them on social media? Take us through your typical process.
It definitely comes from scrolling through TikTok and Twitter, mainly TikTok. I have a friend who loves to send me these like random food trucks they find on social media. And when I look to see like if it's in like LA, I'm like, yeah, we gotta go. Cause like the food, they'll make like this crazy concoction of like meats and cheese. It looks like art. And I'm like, we have to go get that. Recently I found out about there's this a YouTuber named David Dobrik who opened up a pizza shop in Hollywood that I found on TikTok, and the slice looked so good that I had to order it. So that was one of those like experiences that are like that you can only get on Uber Eats. I noticed that you couldn't find it on DoorDash, Grubhub, anywhere else. It was Uber Eats exclusive, and it was outstanding. So yeah, social media plays a big part into me finding new spots.
Thanks, T. And Josh, I'd love to have you answer this question as well. How do you discover things, especially as you're not as married to a particular aggregator as the rest of the panel? So figuring out, how do you discover foods? And then you mentioned some social media trends that you've seen: stuffed bell peppers with cream cheese and hot Cheetos, chopped Italian sandwiches, sour cream and Cheetos. And the best trend you've tried was sour cream and Cheetos. So take us through your typical process of discovering a restaurant, discovering food items.
So kind of like T said, social media is a very large factor in that, whether it's because St. Louis isn't very big, especially when it comes to restaurant culture or anything like that. But if I get on TikTok or Instagram Reels and search St. Louis food or something like that, then I'll get a bunch of new places I never tried before. So that'll entice me to kind of branch out a little bit. But on top of that, if I'm just scrolling through Instagram stories or something like that, and I see a really good plate or a really good slice of pizza, like T was saying, then I'm going to slide up on whoever posted and say, hey, where'd you get this or something like that? And then want to try it myself, whether it's with me, like just me or my friends or anything like that. But yeah.
And what about you, Emily?
I was actually going to make a point that sometimes the advertisements from food company themselves don't really get me to try their food. It's usually, I hate to say like an influencer has influence over me, but it is like foodies, and they have Instagram reels and stuff like that. And the way they present the food, I feel like is so much more appealing than the company's like direct commercial. Only because I like to hear about them like describe it if they think it's worth the money. Yeah. So social media like Instagram reels. Yeah.
I was also
What
going to say
specific?
the same thing.
Oh, go ahead, T.
Sorry. I was gonna say the same thing because earlier I was saying I found that video on TikTok. It's not about like advertisements about like the restaurant. It's mainly like real people who are trying the food. I know for a lot of people in Las Vegas, Keith Lee's a big influence when it comes to like trying foods. And a restaurant will have like 2 customers that week, and he'll go try and he'll be like, "Yeah, I had a great time. It was amazing." And here comes this outpour, like lines right around the corner of people trying their food. And it's the same thing for me, honestly. Yeah, just like real people reviewing food really gets me in the door.
Especially when it's not like a paid promotion either. You just know it's like an authentic experience that they're sharing with us. And it makes me want to try the food a lot more.
So it's interesting because something that came up during the rehearsal was this idea of gatekeeping as well that exists too when you guys are in discovery. So even though you find all this on TikTok and Instagram, your friends, you see them eating something, but sometimes you'll message them and ask, what is that? And like, they won't want to share it. And T, you said you had someone fake a car crash over a voice note. to
Yeah.
prevent them from saying the name of the restaurant. Please take us through this story before we jump to the next
That
driver.
is so, it was like this like beautiful plate, like it looked like it was cooked to perfection. And I'm like, yo, bro, where'd you get this? And he sends me a voice note and he's like, oh yeah, bro, it's definitely reply. But actually, it's this spot downtown. It's called, and then like he played like a car crashing noise, and I'm like, bro, just tell me where you got it from. Like, why are you being weird? Or like I've seen stuff where they're like, sorry, but this is the last one ever made. The restaurant exploded and the owner moved to Thailand, so it's cooked, bro. I'm sorry. And I'm like, why are you lying to me? Just share the food.
And that's something that you guys have experienced too, Josh and Emily.
100%. But I'm an Instagram detective, so I'm gonna find out where you got the plate.
Hmm.
Exactly.
I think it's just a weird joke, like a trend, that's been going around.
Nice. Thanks, guys. Okay, we're going to jump quickly to personalization and exclusivity, and then we're going to jump into the Q&As to make sure we have time to answer everyone's questions. And so drivers 4 and 5, personalization, exclusivity, are some of the things that we've heard a bit from the panel, but really we want to talk about, okay, time and cost, the convenience of aggregators, this element of this third party access to food. It's really, really a big pull for you guys, a really big pull for the demographic in general and consumers. And so what are those special things that can motivate and move a restaurant customer to having more direct relationship with the restaurant and the food? And we can hit next slide. And so the biggest thing, of course, is personalization. So how much does your customer feel you understand them? And something you mentioned, Emily, was that concept of an order history and suggesting, being able to directly order something again. But perhaps if a restaurant had something like some kind of discovery function, giving you recommendations based on things you haven't tried and would love, could be something interesting, and making it special. How unique and special do you make your customers feel? A good example of this is burger chain Pincho creating a hidden menu for its highest spending rewards customers. And this brought us to an idea, and then T's example that we didn't even know about prior to creating this deck, which was, and this is actually a question for T, you, and the rest of the panel. What are the personalization and exclusive things that would build a relationship with you guys and a restaurant directly, that would get you to move from aggregators like Uber Eats, Grubhub, etc.? And something I was thinking when I saw the case study of Pincho was, T, your story about Wingstop and having those flavors that weren't available on the aggregator. And you actually download the app for the first time in years. You thought you would never download a direct restaurant app, but you did it. And then you walk to get the food to save the money. So all these new behaviors. So something like a restaurant having a hidden menu, for its direct customers, as opposed to, things that aren't available on an aggregator. Would that be something that interests you? What are those things that make you feel seen, make you feel special? What would inspire you to order directly from a restaurant? And we can hit the next slide, Mata. And I'll start with you, T, because I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I mean, that would get me. Like I feel like it was an accident, but if more restaurants like secretly took away like their most popular things and was like, oh, it's an accident, it's a first party app exclusive, I'd switch so quickly. Like, or even if like, because I know there's people online who petition to bring back these certain like elusive items at restaurants that like disappeared like over a decade ago, and like bring back this item. If they brought back like these specialty items that people once loved, but put it behind their app, that would also get me and a lot of other people.
Thanks, T. What about you, Emily?
In my experience, the way that I was drawn to keep going back to a company or a restaurant chain is if they had like a point reward system. So sometimes if you sign up with your phone number and you take a picture of your receipt, it goes into a point system, and then you could use those points to get, maybe like a free appetizer or dessert, stuff like that. And the last place that I worked at before my restaurant job was a place or a company that we sold already made meals, so they were pre-made, and people just came in and they bought it off the shelves. We did deals where it was like if you purchase five, you could get one for free, and we had deals on Monday where you could purchase like buy one get one free. The point system as well, so how many dollars you spend, you get a point back, and you can accumulate it for however long you want. They don't expire, and you could use that toward purchasing like more meals. Yeah.
So rewards that are meaningful, something that's not just an endless point system where you feel like you're just buying into something and you never see a reward, but more immediate kind of experiences. Like you're saying, you upload a receipt, you get maybe an immediate discount, something that is happening one-to-one almost, as opposed to collecting points overall.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's like anyone here has experienced, you sign up for a point system, maybe they'll give you 10% off, and then you've been going to the store so consistently and saving up those points, but it feels like you don't get anything in return. Yeah, it's a little like disappointing. It doesn't make you really want to continue spending your money there.
Thanks, Em. And Josh, what about you? What would inspire you to order directly from a restaurant? And you have some more direct order behavior, but what are the things that inspire you to order from a restaurant? And what do you expect a restaurant to know about you?
So something that Emily had pointed out earlier was like somebody keeping track of your order history. And I noticed that a lot more restaurants are starting to do that, like with an app. Like I know that McDonald's does it, and Chick-fil-A does it as well. But something Chick-fil-A does, which this is gonna go into my next point as well. So not only do they keep you like your last order or anything like that, but they also allow you to make your own order in app and then like select it as a favorite. That way you can just go, like even if you've never ordered it before, you can just go into the app, say, hey, I'm gonna order this because I already had this order created like for however long, and then just go pick it up. But also something that like kind of just drives me to do that is free rewards. Like for example, Chick-fil-A. So with the place that I work at, it's right by Chick-fil-A, and I'll open my Chick-fil-A app and randomly it'll just say, hey, here's a free chicken sandwich for today. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm definitely gonna keep using this app because why would I not? You know?
Thanks, Josh. So we're gonna skip the takeaway slide and we're gonna move directly to Q&A so we have time. And I'm gonna jump to Maggie's question. She says, sounds like everyone is using aggregators like Uber Eats, but does anyone have restaurant apps on their phones? Thinking specifically along the lines of fast food, which apps do you have on your phones and why? So T, I know you just downloaded Wingstop, so we'll start with you.
I was gonna say now it's Wingstop. I don't know. I think consistently after that experience, I might use it more for Wingstop because I do order like a lot from Uber Eats, but the Wingstop is like a 20-ish minute walk from where I live. I can do that. It's the extra walking is kind of worth like the cheaper price, like $10 cheaper. That's without like a tip and delivery fees. Yeah, I'm taking that trip. I'm taking that trip every time.
Nice. Do you have any other apps on your phone, or is Wingstop the first one and the only one right now?
The first one for now. We'll see. We'll see if they follow their lead. These other restaurants.
Okay, what about you, Emily? Which apps do you have on your phone and why in terms of fast food restaurants?
I actually don't have any specific restaurant like T does for Wingstop. Mine are just Instacart and Grubhub. If I'm going grocery shopping, I have like the Kroger app as well to see what discounts they have that day or that week. But no specific food restaurants.
And how come no restaurant apps directly on your phone?
I found that using Grubhub or Instacart has done just enough. If it got to the point where it was like tea and I wasn't finding what I wanted, I would probably go out my way to order through the specific restaurant app itself. But so far, it's been okay.
Do you have a favorite restaurant you order from on Grubhub that you consistently order from?
Yes, I mentioned earlier about the Korean food. There's one downtown, it's called Saria Korean House. I order from there way too often.
Have you ever looked at ordering directly from them, or why not order direct? Do they not come to your area?
As far as I'm concerned, I don't know, I don't believe they offer delivery from their restaurant directly. The only way they probably do is through DoorDash or Grubhub or Uber Eats. Because like if it was like a pizza shop, they have a delivery driver, but I believe for their restaurant, it's mostly based off of those apps to have people come pick it up and drop it off for you. Yeah.
Thanks, Em. And what about you, Josh? Which apps do you have on your phone and why?
I have quite a few. I have McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Jack in the Box, Cane's, and Starbucks.
Okay. Chick-fil-A. So 5, quick service apps.
Yeah.
Why those apps?
Honestly, kind of just the go-tos. Like I was saying, I use the Chick-fil-A app for usually when I'm at work. Same with McDonald's. And then Starbucks, since it's coffee, but I can also use it to get like breakfast or something like that. If it's like early in the morning, I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on in the Starbucks app today. But yeah.
And how come you don't just order through a food aggregator? Why do you go direct to the restaurants?
Like I said, I just like to have variety, so we'll go with the best bargain.
The best bargain. So what does bargain mean to you? Like, what is an example of the best option for ordering Starbucks or through Starbucks, or the best option for ordering through Noodles and Company?
So like T's example, going on to an aggregator and seeing the $30 price versus going into the actual app and seeing the $17 price is enough to make me say, let me just keep these apps on hand, because that could be the case every time.
Nice. Okay, we're going to jump to another question. So David asked, do you prefer pickup or delivery? What's the benefit of not having to leave your home versus control of picking it up yourself? So obviously one of those benefits is cost, but we'll start with you, Josh. Do you have a preference? Do you prefer picking up versus getting things delivered? Is cost the only reason for that?
I prefer picking up. Cost, I wouldn't say it's the only reason. It's mainly the time and convenience thing. And I'm always like on the go anyway, so I'm usually out to the point where, okay, I'll just get this on my way somewhere. But yeah, nah, for the most part, I don't, like he was saying, I don't want to sit there and watch my food get cold while waiting for it to be delivered, knowing that I can just be there when it's ready and then just go directly home and eat it.
Yeah, I know that feeling of, okay, how am I what's the food gonna be like when it actually arrives, right?
Exactly.
It's a question. Okay, what about you, T? We'll throw this question at you as well. We know you prefer delivery because you're very time strapped and pickup is new for you. But what are those benefits of pickup versus delivery for you in addition to cost?
Yeah, you know what? Because I know the way Wingstop works, I know they usually take around 20 minutes to order. I like ordered at the perfect time. So by the time I got there, it was just done and perfectly warm. But for delivery, it's not always about so leaving the house, right? If I got to do work and I can't take a break, if I have a deadline due and I have to like make up this report that I have to turn it in, I don't want to have to take the extra time out of my day to go walk to a restaurant. But also at work, I don't do this often, but I'll order food for my lunch because I don't drive. And even if I did, 30 minutes isn't enough time to go to a nearby restaurant, order it, and come back and eat it. So me and other coworkers have ordered delivery for our jobs, for our lunch. Because it's just out of convenience. There's a benefit of just like not wasting time.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, T. So there's another kind of related question. If restaurant direct order prices are cheaper, would you order directly versus an aggregator? So not just delivery, but also the prices themselves. You saw the prices of the food items were cheaper directly through a restaurant app. Would you order direct versus through an aggregator? And how much cheaper would they have to be?
It depends. So sometimes you pay extra for luxury. But like I said, that day I had the time to go walk. But it's with aggregators, everything is there. It's a central hub for all your wants and needs. But consistently, if you're only using the app for one restaurant, you might as well get the app. That's a big benefit. Because that cost does end up racking up if you're just doing it for one spot. So like I said earlier, that $30 to $17 difference, if it was like that consistently for like delivery and everything, it definitely would make me want to switch to more apps, so like first party apps.
I read a stat, and I'm curious about this with the panel, that majority of Gen Z is not going to download an app unless they think they're going to use it incredibly frequently. So you're not going to download an app and just have it kind of sit there. Even if you'll use it once a month, that won't be meaningful enough. How do you guys make decisions to download an app, for instance, that is for one unique thing, like a particular restaurant, a particular QSR, versus an aggregator that has a whole marketplace of options?
Honestly, I just try anything. Like I'm not opposed to downloading an app and it sits there for a couple weeks or a month and I'm like, okay, I'm not using this as much as I thought I would, and then just delete it.
So you must have a lot of good storage space on your phone too.
I just got a new phone as well, so it's perfect.
What about you, Em?
I've actually downloaded quite a couple of apps. They didn't stay, like as long as I needed them. I'll just try it out. And if I don't like it, I'll just delete it, like Josh.
What's your average time from download to app deletion if you're not using an app frequently?
Probably when I get the notification that I've used up too much of my storage and I'm rummaging through whatever apps I can get rid of. But sometimes it just sits there really, like I'm like an app hoarder. Yeah.
That's
Also,
for you, and Josh.
I'll also say,
sorry. I was gonna say like same for me because I have ADHD, so it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind thing. So it'll sit there for the longest time, and then like I'll be out of space, or like I'll get like a random notification from the app, and I'm like, "What are you? No, I'm not gonna use you." It's getting deleted.
Sometimes you get really tired of the notifications. It's just consistently popping up, and it's like, oh, I don't
you're just leave me alone.
There's some of the apps that I literally did forget about though, because something that Apple started doing, if the apps sit there for some time without you using them, it'll automatically like offload it and delete it from your phone without deleting it from your phone. So the app is still sitting there, but you're not getting notifications or anything. So you just forget that you have it until you see it.
Just a waste of space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Waste of storage space. Okay. We have another question from Joseph, that if a brand promoted lower fees and exclusive items or deals, would that make you switch to a direct restaurant or food app? What are those things? Would that make you switch if there were lower fees and exclusive items or deals at that restaurant?
Yeah, I think like T was saying as well with the Wingstop Laker flavor, like that sounded super interesting to the point where I was like, dang, let me go check my Wingstop and see if I have that same flavor.
That's LA exclusive. Sorry, Tom.
My fault.
That's LA exclusive. I'm sorry to cut it to you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think when I was answering the question before, I thought about other restaurants that could really give me to download their app. And I remember there was this chicken sandwich I tried from Jack in the Box called the Blazing Cluck. And so it was the regular chicken sandwich, but it had like more sauce, some bacon, and like an onion ring on it. And I remember like trying it for a summer straight with a homie back when it came out. And if they brought that back onto an app, I'm there to get that first party app immediately.
Okay, we have another question from Anonymous. When it comes to tipping, is it just 20% plus across the board, or what are your factors when deciding what to tip?
For me, what I'll do is I'll leave a note for the driver that says, please wait, like don't just drop it off, take a picture and leave, just wait at the door. I don't like to charge the tip through my phone, so I'll actually give them cash. I have a lot of cash that are saved up from my job too. So yeah. But 20%, yeah.
Mhm. What about you, Josh?
20% as well, but like sometimes there will be times where if they like there are drivers that will go above and beyond for something, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna tip you a lot. Like I'll just
Mhm.
answer a random amount.
What about you,
Yeah.
T?
Yeah, I'm the same way with tipping in person and cash, mainly because, oh man, I hate seeing that price on the apps where it's like it's already expensive and they want me to like add an extra like $6 or $7, and I'm like, and there was this trend online called like girl math or whatever, and then the girls were like, if I spend money in cash, it's free. That's how I feel about tipping. Like I'll pay the extra money, but I just don't want to see it on the app. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
I get that. I feel the same way. It's painful, but you want to do right by the drivers, but it is painful.
yeah, it's so I'm like, just see me in person, please.
Sometimes I'm scared that they'll think we aren't going to give them anything because I'll put like 0, but I always like, please, like, wait, I'm gonna give them
Like,
cash.
trust me.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from Anonymous, another anonymous questioner. What drives you to leave a good or bad review for a restaurant? And do you do this via Yelp, via Google, TripAdvisor? And during rehearsal, we spoke about how you guys look for reviews as well. So make that the second part of your question, because we want the attendees to understand that too. So first, what drives you to leave a good or bad review and where? And then where do you look for reviews for restaurants? How do you make that decision on quality?
I mean, me personally, when it comes to leaving good and bad, I try my best not to leave bad reviews, just because that's a lot of energy that I'm expelling by just going onto the internet or wherever just to type bad things about this restaurant that people are still going to order from, no matter what I say. Um, so I just try not to do it. But when it comes to like good reviews, I like to give praise where praise is deserved. Like if somebody does something exceptionally well, I'm like, okay, everybody should go try this. And it's not only reviews and like I'm going on Yelp, but reviews and I'm telling my friends, like putting them on to these spots and yeah, you should try this from here. You should go here. You should go here. Stuff like that. But then also when it comes to like how you said the second part of the question was kind of like how I find reviews, or
Like, where do you put reviews when you write reviews? And then what's your review process when you're actually gauging if you want to try a restaurant and looking at reviews?
got you. So the review process is honestly a little like, yeah, I'll go on sites like Yelp and stuff like that, but for the most part, I'm getting like firsthand experiences from people that I know went there, because kind of like Emily was saying, it's always better when it's like when you can tell it's not like a paid promotion. Like when I'm not, because there are people that will go and like go into these restaurants like Yelps and just type good reviews for no reason. So I just find it better to talk to people that I personally know that actually had that experience there.
And what sites do you use? Google, Yelp?
Mainly Google and Yelp, but for like reading reviews, yeah.
Mhm. And if you write a review, do you try and write it where? Same thing, Google
Yeah.
and Yelp.
Mhm.
What about you, Em?
Just like Josh, I feel bad when I leave a negative review. It would have to be a very, very, very poor experience. Like maybe if I got into an argument with them or something, which even then I try not to get to that point at all. Um, the only time I'll really leave reviews is if I'm there in person, either picking up or dining in. If it's a delivery and I'm eating the food at home, it would have to be like really bad food for me to say something about it. Most of the time though, I do like to give out good reviews. Like probably won't leave a comment, but I'll just put like the 5 stars. Um, and the places that I tend to leave those are gonna be Yelp and Google. I actually have the Google Maps, and you could search up places on there, and you could leave reviews through Google Maps. So that's what I use too.
What about you, T?
I can't say much more than they already have. It's the same for me. I feel like to leave a bad review, to go out of my way to put a bad review, it's got to be like health violation bad. Like I'm not like going out of my way to like, talk smack about somebody because you don't know what's going on with their life. But
Mhm.
yeah, same thing. I don't really leave comments on reviews, but if it's a good service, I'm gonna, give you the 4 or 5 stars. And when it comes to receiving reviews, much like Josh, it's word of mouth because sometimes people online don't share the same palette as me. And I notice people online like to complain more than congratulate. So the people in my area that are like native to like I live in Koreatown, the spots nearby, I'm gonna listen to them like, hey, what's good around here? And that's my kind of like review process.
So something we spoke about also in rehearsal that I'm curious for the attendees to hear about as well, and anyone watching this recording, is the time frame between you deciding to try a restaurant. What's that process? What's that time frame? So Josh, I know you said when you're looking at a new restaurant, you'll spend about half an hour looking at reviews, trying to read and get like a good comprehension, looking at images of the food online. So Josh, can you take us a little bit through your process? What's the time frame? Where do you go? What makes you make a decision to try that restaurant or not?
So yeah, kind of like you said, it'll take me about half an hour total. Like that's kind of like the maximum amount it'll get to. But for the most part, I'll just look like if I'm looking specifically for a new like if I find a new restaurant, I'll go on Google and I'm like, okay, let's see reviews for this. And then once I see the reviews, I'll start looking at the menu. Once I start looking at the menu, I'll select a couple items. I'm like, okay, I'm interested in that. Let's look at photos of these items. And then that's kind of where if I know people that went to that restaurant or that mentioned it to me in the conversation, that's when I call them. I'm like, hey, when you went to this restaurant, what you think about this? Or text them or something as simple as that. But pretty simple for the most part.
What about you, Em?
For me, I want to say that I'll reach out to people and see. I'm sorry, can you repeat one more time?
What's your process when you're deciding to try a restaurant or not? How long does it take you to look at reviews and make a decision, looking at pictures before you're trying something new?
Yeah, like T and Josh, I'll ask people that I know personally, if they've tried a place or not. And when I go into the app, I'll see the distance, and the distance, like, it will correlate with how long it's going to take to get to my home. So I'll look at that as well. It doesn't really take too long for me to decide if I want to try a place or not. It's just really like what I'm craving and what seems appealing to me in that moment. Um, a lot of the times I'll go onto Yelp and look at the pictures themselves, like of the food. I don't really care for like the pictures that the restaurant themselves upload because it could just be like taken from the internet or something, or like a generic like stock image. So I like to see what other people who have dined there post, what they like to get, the pictures of their own like personal plate, and then see if it's like nice or not, and if I do want to order it, spend money on it. Yeah, so not too long.
Do you say like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, less?
Maybe like maximum 20 minutes. Yeah,
Cool.
doing some
And
research.
lastly, what about you, T?
Oh, I mean, for me, it's a lot. So for trying a new spot, the way my brain works, I feel like it's a lot of if you stay ready, you're gonna get ready kind of energy. So if a friend told you about a spot like a while ago, right? It'll be in my brain locked and banked, and I'll like kind of forget about it, and then I'll be like, I'm craving Indian food, right? So I'll open up Uber Eats and I'll scroll through in like the Indian section, and then I'll see the restaurant that the friend recommended me, and I'm like, oh, perfect. Like it like wakes up a memory in my head. Um, Something that entices me, much like M, is the pictures. For local like mom and pop like the restaurants that like aren't chain, I don't like seeing like this random burger on a white background. I want to see like the chef's like old Android phone that came out like 10 years ago. Take that picture and see what the burger looks like in person. Like all like the authenticity like really gets me every single time.
Nice. Thanks, T. All right. So those are all the questions that we have, and we're going to wrap. Thank you guys for being so transparent And I'm very happy, T, that you had your first experience downloading a direct app and now you're more open-minded about it.
They got me. They got me.
Thank you all for attending and watching our webinar. We will send out a recording of this session along with some of these really great key slides that Natalie created. And we will look forward to seeing you in the new year for our next webinar series. It's going to be, we're going to start the new year off right on health and wellness and Gen Z's take on that. Nice to see everybody. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, T, and Emily.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.